So you know that you need to post content to grow your business, but you also know that you cannot be editing your own videos because it's a low leverage task, it takes a lot of time. But when you started outsourcing editing, you wanted to pull all your hair out when you first got the first edits from your editors. So you went back on Upwork and you tried to find other editors, but every time was the same story. You gave super clear guidelines and then they gave you somehow some whacked stuff. And it looks like you are almost dealing with AI, where if you don't give a super clear guideline, a super clear prompt, you get some weird ass stuff. Now I'm here to tell you, show you, and prove you that there are good editors, and you only need the right process to find them, onboard them, and manage them for them to perform well. So that's you give them a video, and you don't even have to give guidelines, and you don't even have to give revisions, and they gave you with the best video possible. In fact, I am 100% certain that this video is not gonna need any revisions. Why? Because I use the right process to onboard them and manage them, because I was an editor myself and I had a content agency. So by the end of this video, you're not only gonna have a clear roadmap, but I'm also gonna give you some templates, plug and play templates that I personally use to hire and manage dozens of editors. This time you wanna punch your screen is finally over. Let's get into it. So before I show you where to find them, how to filter them, how to onboard them, and how to manage them, I just wanna make a couple of premises. So first thing first, don't hire a content agency. And again, mind you, I had a content agency myself in the past, and I'm telling you to not hire one. Let me explain. I think you realized by now the importance of having a strong personal brand. You know, you just look at Hormozi, Imangaji, and all the biggest in the space. They all prioritize their product and their brand. Because yes, you can have the best product in the market, but if you don't have an audience of people that want to buy it, you're not gonna make any money. Now, I understand that you might not like that much creating content, and you might even not have that much time for it, but just think about it, right? You have a company, you're running a company most probably, and you probably hired a bunch of people to do specific tasks. Now, before you hired those people, you probably knew the basics, the fundamentals of that specific task yourself, right? So if you don't know anything about content and you've never done content yourself, how can you hire someone who's qualified enough to do your content? Then it's called a personal brand, because it has to be personal. Otherwise, you're just building a commodity brand and you're not going to have anything differentiating you from your competition. That's why if you just hire a marketing agency who's handling dozens of other profiles like yours, of people maybe in the same niche, how can you expect to be somehow different? And all this is without even mentioning the margins that content agency have. In this video, I'm going to also mention how you can hire your own content agency, how you can create your in-house content agency made by 2, maybe 3 people. The second thing is don't hire a copywriter, at least at the beginning. Let me explain why. So there are 2 types of creator. One is the normal classic content creator. So you have your script, you plan, you have your ideas, you sit down and you record, right? And then you have another type, like level 2 type of creator, that is called the streamer, where you don't even have to sit down, script and record. You just turn on the camera and you film something that you are already doing and you turn it into a piece of content. So it might be a coaching session, might be a one-on-one session, might be even just a vlog, and you can turn it into short-form content and long-form content. That's the most efficient type of creator, and that's the one that you should strive towards. Now, if you don't know how to script, because you've always outsourced scripting videos, then you will never be able to be a proficient and efficient streamer, because you're not going to be able to bake, sandwich those frameworks, those storytelling frameworks into your day-to-day activity. Meaning, if you're going to become a streamer one day, if you're going to become a streamer type of creator, you're not going to be able to make your content perform well, because you're not going to use the right frameworks, the right wordings, and the right strategies to increase retention and hook people. So yes, you might want to onboard an in-house copywriter in the future just to speed up the process when it comes to YouTube videos and all that. But again, should be in-house, should handle just your content and maybe a couple of other people, but you need to know the fundamentals yourself first. You also don't need, at least at the beginning, a creative director. I'm a strong believer that you can scale to 50 grand a month with 2 people in your company, a setter, a really good setter, and a really good editor. And I'm going to show you how to find and onboard and manage this really good editor in this video. The reason why you don't need a creative director at the beginning to manage your editors and help you with ideation and planning is, again, because you need to understand how to do it yourself before you can outsource it. And then, and this is a hack, you should hire an editor that is in the process of becoming a creative director. Now, the natural progression is you become an editor, you can become really good, and then you start, handling bigger profiles and you become a creative director. So someone who hires, trains, manages editors, and also helps you with content creation, ideation, and all those tasks in general. Now, the key is that you want to find an editor that is in that period of transition, is almost at the end of the editing career, and is almost about to transition within, 4 to 6 months to a creative director role so that you can use them as editors for a short period of time, and they're going to be super skilled, and then you want to later promote them as creative directors. Another couple of important premises before we dive into the nitty and gritty and the actual process that you're waiting for. Do not cheap out on editors. When I first started my content agency, I was cheaping out. I was trying to find the wackest editors, the cheapest editors I could find, because I wanted to keep my margins high, right? And then I was spending my entire day managing them, and you don't want to be doing yourself. And that was, mind you, kind of like my main task. But if you're running a business, you don't want to be managing people 24/7, especially for content. And especially if by paying a little more, you can get someone who doesn't even have to be managed and doesn't even need directions at some point anymore. If you cheap out on your editors, you're not only going to lose time and mental health, but also trust and authority. Because if your content doesn't look clean, you're going to decrease the perceived value of your service, and you're also going to decrease conversion. So be okay with paying $200, $300 per YouTube video and $50 to $70 per reel. Sounds crazy. Of course, it depends on the complexity that you want to go for. You might want to cheap out on complexity. You might want to ask for simpler edits rather than more complicated edits, but you don't want to cheap out on the editor itself. And then just think about it, right? If you're selling high ticket and you get 300 views, 300 qualified views to your video, still you might find 1 or 2 buyers for that video. So even if you paid $300 for that video, still it's the biggest leverage you can pull, and it's a great investment, especially for YouTube videos. You need to understand that 100 views on YouTube are equal to 10,000, if not 20,000 views on Instagram, because the buying intent on YouTube is simply at another level, and the level of trust and authority that you build through YouTube content, through long-form content like this one, is uncomparable compared to the traffic that you're getting on Instagram. And that's why you want to have as many bridges as possible. Little tip for you, between Instagram and YouTube, so that even if you get more traffic on Instagram, you can redirect them and nurture them on YouTube. Like I mentioned, you want to find someone who is in the transition between editor and creative director, meaning they don't just have to have technical skills in terms of editing software, sound design, and all that stuff. They need to have a good understanding of organic content, retention, buyers' behavior and psychology, and buyers' journey. If they don't have any marketing knowledge at all, they're not going to understand what to put in your videos, what to cut, what to trim out, when to crop in, when to crop out. It's not just about understanding English or the language you're speaking in your videos. It's really about understanding what actually gets people to buy. Because at the end of the day, if you don't want to micromanage them, they need to know what to cut, what to keep, and what to highlight. The last thing you want to do is hire a monkey see, monkey do person, because again, those people are just going to follow your guidelines. So it's going to be like prompting AI or asking a software to create a video and then getting frustrated because the video is not the way you wanted it to be. And just a few quick fire tips before we dive into the actual process. They need to ideally have some experience in your niche so that you don't have to explain all the fundamentals and core principles of your niche. Ideally, they should be from South Africa, Eastern Europe, or Central America. These I found to be the best countries between fair price and good quality and good understanding. You can find editors in third world countries, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, 100%. The problem is that there is so much noise. 98% of them are going to be not that good, and it's going to be a bit harder to find the ones that actually perform and edit videos the way you want them to be edited. So sometimes it's easier to go from those like mid-level countries, like you don't want to go necessarily for like UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, US, because usually the prices are going to be a bit too high, but you can go with something in between and you're going to find smart people, good editors, and fair prices. Sound design is one of the most important elements of editing a video, and it's probably the hardest one to grasp for editors. So that's the first thing that you want to look when it comes to editing. If they don't have experience with sound design, if they don't know what you're doing with sound effects and they just use some random music that doesn't spark any emotion, it's going to be really hard to work with them. And do not neglect this part, because especially if you want to have a clean editing and you want to spark those emotions and create that connection through your videos, you need someone who understands and knows how to use sound design. They need to be proactive and perfectionist, of course. And last thing, and this one is for you as a business owner, you need to understand what makes good content. Because if you don't even understand what makes a video good or bad, then you won't even be able to decide which editor is best or worse for your company. So you can watch this video somewhere right up here after this one, where I explain exactly what makes good content so that you understand what to look for. But now, let's dive into it. Now, the first thing is, where do you find them? Well, you can pretty much remove from your list Upwork and Fiverr. These are not usually the best place where to find editors. Now, don't get me wrong, I did find some good editors in there, but I had to go through so many applications that you don't even have the idea. That's the same thing that we were talking about before. Like, there is so much noise on those platforms that it's really hard to find good qualified editors. And usually those editors are not even hanging around too much on those platforms because they have high fees. Usually those editors editors are mainly getting work through referrals. So that's where you want to find your editors. You want to maybe look on X. Most editors are on X, Twitter. So you can do some job applications on X, or you can use Instagram. Especially if you have a solid brand already, you can simply leverage your own stories, because editors, you've probably been reached out to by some editors before. They are often reaching out, doing outreach and hanging around on Instagram. And if you can create a nice story, a nice application in your stories, you're going to be likely to get some applications, because someone is going to maybe reach out to you, oh, I have this editor, or some editors are going to apply and then send it to other editors, and so on and so forth. And the better is your brand, the easier it's going to be to get better people. It's always the same stuff. You don't just want to build a strong brand to get clients. You also want to build a strong brand to make it easier for you to find the best people to work with. Like, again, imagine Alex Hormozi. I guess he's got like the best people willing to work with him for free, because he's got such a high perceived values and such a big, strong brand. Another good way to find editors on Instagram is to reach out to editors trainers. So the info space is massive, and just like there are people teaching people how to become closers or setters or how to get fitter in the gym, there are people teaching editors how to get better so they can charge more. So try and find high level editor trainers and ask them if they have someone in their community that is looking for a position. Seems obvious, but sometimes you overlook this, your network. Like, if you have editors or if you have friends who have good looking content, just ask all of them, hey, do you have an editor? Hey, does your editor knows other editors? Because again, usually these editors have been trained by the same people or are hanging around together. So if you know a good editor, you're gonna be able to access more better editors. And then last place to find editors is school. So you can go on school and look for the best editing communities. So again, people teaching people how to become better editors. And in there, you can infiltrate them and you can, ask if someone is looking for a position. Now at this point, you kind of know already what to look for, and you also know where to find them. Now you need the hiring process. The first step of hiring an editor, once you know where to find them, is the job application. Now I've already done it for you. So if you click the link in the description, it's going to be a template that you can duplicate for yourself. It's a Notion template. You can even modify it with your personal preferences and exactly what you need. But essentially, you want to just send that job application out anywhere and get as many good applications as you can. And I'm not talking 10, 20, I'm talking 50, 100, 200 applications. Might look like a big waste of time to go through all of them. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. But in actual fact, it's more the time that you waste if you onboard the wrong person. So better to spend more time upfront than to waste time later and have to fire and rehire. As you can see now on the screen, in the job application, you're going to have a bunch of questions, but really the most important thing is the portfolio. You want to understand how intentional their edits are, how good the storytelling is, how good they are at finding the right spots, how precise they are, how good the sound design is, all those little technical things. And like I said, you also want to make sure that they have experience ideally in your niche. And again, when you review the content, go a bit beyond just the editing itself and try to understand how good they are at positioning the person that they're editing the video for as an authority, as an expert, because at the end of the day, that's what leads to conversion. And that's often in the editor's hands. The second step is you want to reach out to them and have a little conversation with them. Nothing crazy. Mainly you want to know if they're able and willing to do a sample test for you, a sample edit. Now, if they're not, boom, they're out, because this is a long-term position and you want them to understand that this is a long-term position. If they're not even willing to put 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of effort to eventually land a long-term role, then they pretty much disqualify themselves. Ideally, when it comes to a test edit, you can either give them a pre-edited video or a video to clip out. Especially if clipping out is important for you, you want them to be able to understand what part exactly they need to clip out from a long-form video and transform it into a short-form video. And then again, you want to ask them to add sound design, to add B-roll. You want to give them access to a B-roll library of your clips, ideally. And then you want to understand what clips to use in that content. Again, intentionality. Make them think. Give them few directions and make them think. That's going to give you a great indication of whether they're good and they can work autonomously or they need to be micromanaged, and so you don't want to work with them. You want to give them 24 hours to submit the file, and if they exceed the time, they're pretty much out. And then review them, and realistically, you're going to stay with 3 to 5 people. And you want to jump on 15-minute calls with them. And you want to ask the following questions. These are pretty much the questions that I ask when I hire setters, because that's what I do pretty much now full time, together with running ads for coaches. But these are pretty much the same questions that you want to ask to the setter and the editor when you're hiring them in these 15 to 20-minute call. Where you're from, you edit full time, what made you start editing, previous editing experience and training, who were you editing for, how many views did you generate through your edits, and how many sales, if you can show that, did you generate through your content, how long did you work for with the previous previous client, why are you or you would like to leave them, how we're getting managed. Again, you want to understand if they were micromanaged or if they were kind of autonomous. Have you invested into any kind of training, or like where did you learn how to edit videos the right way? This is going to show you if they are willing to do that long term. If they're investing into their editing journey, it means that they are serious about it and they want to keep doing it. What time zone, what financial goals, so that you can see if they align with your company's vision, and also what they want to achieve in the future. If they want to stay in the content creation space and they already have in mind to become creative directors, that's a really, really good green flag. If they don't have any goal and they have no interest in stepping up, they just care about making more money, they're probably not the right people. They need to be willing to learn, improve, understand other aspects of content like copywriting and ideation, rather than just editing videos and potentially managing editors. And sometimes them wanting to teach others how to edit, it's actually a good thing, because you can make it so that that is aligned with your company. You can still keep them and you can get them to hire and train other people for you if the content volume increases, or if they become creative directors and you need other editors, because now they don't edit your videos anymore that much. Right, now at this point, after these calls, you should have 1 to 3 people, and ideally you want to test them all together. This test is of course going to be compensated, but here the goal is not to understand how good their edits are, because you kind of already understood that through the sample. Here you want to understand how they work, how they communicate, if they're on time, and if they really understand you, your brand, your niche, and the content creation process itself. Right, so we covered a big part going over the premises and things that you should keep in mind before you hire an editor. We know where to find them and how to filter through them so that you can find the best ones. Now that you have the best ones, how do you onboard them into your business properly so that they not only understand everything as soon as possible, but they also stick to the company for long enough? The first thing they need is niche training. So again, if they have experience in your niche, even better. But still, you might have some slight different ideas than other people in your space, hopefully. So in that case, you want to have some videos, either some resources or even some YouTube videos. And you just tell them, hey, watch these YouTube videos to understand more about the niche, or read these resources to understand more about my process. And on top of that, you also want to walk them through your strategy and who you're targeting in terms of ICP. So what angles are you using in your content, what pain points you want to trigger, what desires your ICP has, and all that stuff. And then you go over some profiles of your competitors or even brands in other niches, and you want to show them what you like about them and what you don't like about them, so they can understand not only how to edit your videos in terms of editing style, but also what traits, morals, and values you want them to make stand out in your content. Another thing that you want to do in this group call that you have maybe at the beginning of the collaboration during this, do some content breakdown. So you go over some of your content and you show them exactly, almost frame by frame, why you did that, why you did that specific thing, or why you asked the previous editor to edit that video in that specific way, and so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, you also want to put yourself in their shoes. Yes, cool, they have the files and they have the guidelines. If they don't understand what you want to achieve through that content, through that specific piece of content, how can they edit the video the way you expect them to edit it? Right, we almost made it. We're in the last section. Now you know where to find them, how to hire them, how to onboard them. You only need to know how to manage them properly so that their interests stay aligned with your business interests. So the first thing you need is an end of the report. Is again going to be in the description of the video so that you can copy and paste it as a template in your Notion workspace and use it for yourself. The reason behind the importance of an EOD is because you want to track them, you want to keep them accountable, and want to see what you can improve in the workflow over time. So you're going to ask things like video edited, video revised, videos completed, break down approximate time spent on each task, list any tasks that weren't completed and why. So this is the accountability part, because they don't want to be filling out this form and having to come up with excuses. How long do you expect to finish pending work? And here what you're doing is you're making them setting milestones and deadlines for themselves. So they have to be accountable to themselves. Highlight any blockers you encountered, specify if you need help with something, and do you have any suggestions or feedbacks in the process. This is important. You want to prioritize communication and make it easy for them to give feedback, because sometimes editors are quite introverted. So if you give them the possibility to express their feedback and suggestions and almost complaints through written form, sometimes you're gonna get more feedback than through spoken form. And then you can create an automation and you can get this delivered to your Slack channel or Discord or whatever platform you use to communicate with your team. And you're gonna have at the end of each day the report from each editor, and you're going to be able to keep an eagle eye on everything. Then you want to set up 1 to 2 calls a week with them so that you can update them on your new content strategies, and you want to review content together. So again, you break down frame by frame almost the content that they edited, and you tell them not only what they can improve, but also what they did good so that they can double down on that. A mistake that I did early in my editor management career is that I was never praising almost what I actually liked about the content. I was actually almost giving it for granted. But make sure that you praise them because they put in the effort. It takes time time to edit a video properly. So make sure you reward them. Then a little tip for you that is going to help you not only to create a bigger, stronger bond with the editor, but also is going to make you save time is, instead of giving revisions through text, try and record a Loom video, going over the video when you need revisions and explain exactly not only what you don't like about the video or what you would like to be changed, but also how you would like that to be changed. So both when you give revisions and guidelines, provide the references. It's going to really help them understand what you want to achieve. Then this is something that very few people do because they see the editor as something a bit like instrumental. Yeah, let me use them, and then they don't really see the editors as part of the company. And that's bad because again, you don't create a strong long-term collaboration. So what you want to do is you want to set up bonuses, right? So there is incentive alignment. So for example, you could say, if this month we hit 50K, I'm going to give you 1,000 bonus or something like that. Because at the end of the day, they are part of your business. And no, you don't want to have a rev share model, but because what they're doing is so important, you want to have some sort of bonus structure in place. And if you can, don't focus just on money bonuses, try and go a bit beyond, like pay for their subscriptions or fly them out, organize a company retreat and stuff like that. And then last thing, but it's probably the most important, is respect them in terms of giving clear guidelines, in terms of giving good raw files, in terms of respectful deadlines. Treat them just like you treat setters, closers, because they are important parts of your business. If your content is not getting edited or your editing is kind of meh, you are wasting time and you're not getting any leads for your setters, closers, and you're not closing any client. So they are an important part of your business. Treat them as such. Right, now you have all the tools you need to find, hire, onboard, and manage editors, but the editor is only the first, as I mentioned throughout this video, person that you need to scale your business to 50K a month. So the second person is the setter. So you can watch this video right here to find out more about how to hire and onboard setters. And again, we're not a content agency, but we do ads, funnels, and setting for coaches. And we have some editors in the backlog. So if you have an info or a coaching offer and you're making more than 20K a month and spending at least 2K in ads and you need some help with your ads or setting, feel free to message me on Instagram. The link is in the description below, and I'll see if I can help.